Good morning and welcome to my kitchen. Today I am going to show you my recipe for homemade waffles. So the first thing we're going to do is get our waffle maker plugged in so that it can start warming up while we make the batter. So this recipe is very easy and delicious, and the nice thing about it is if you make up too many waffles, then you can always just freeze them and pop them in the toaster and use them for waffles or for desserts. It's very fun. So the first thing that we're going to do is get our dry ingredients together. So we are going to be using 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and I'm using my homemade vanilla sugar today. This is just sugar that I put some vanilla beans in, so it's got some of those vanilla flecks in there, and it's just going to give us a little bit more flavor. And then we're going to be using 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon of baking powder. So that would be 4 teaspoons of baking powder. And then we're going to add in some cinnamon. I'd say about 1/4 teaspoon, more or less to taste. And I'm going to add in a little bit of nutmeg as well, just because I really like nutmeg. We'll pretend it's the 17th century and add some in there. And then we're just going to mix this all together.
Smells good.
You can smell the cinnamon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so that's our dry ingredients. Now for our wet ingredients, I have 1/2 cup of melted butter, so that would be 1 stick of melted butter. To that, we are going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then we're going to add 2 eggs as well, which I'm going to crack into my mixing bowl. First to make sure that there's no shells, and then I'm going to whisk them up in there by themselves. And just give those a quick whisk to break the yolks. Put that in with your butter. And then we're going to, excuse me, add in our primary source of liquid, which is going to be 1.5 cups of buttermilk. Now you can use regular milk for this as well. It does not have to be the buttermilk. The buttermilk will give it a little bit richer and tangier of a flavor, whereas the regular milk, because it's a little bit thinner, will give it more of a light and fluffy texture. So you can mix milk and buttermilk if you kind of want both elements, or you can just use one or the other. You hungry for waffles? Alright, so I've got that combined now. And now we're just going to mix the wet and the dry together. And I can smell that my waffle iron is heating up, so that's good. It's a good sign.
The sunken light is a good indication.
Well, you know, the great thing about waffles is it looks like you put all this hard work into it, and really it's very easy to mix up a batch of waffle batter. And they look all fancy, but all you do is put it on a waffle iron. And you can find a waffle iron anywhere. You can buy one new for not that much, or you can find one at a thrift store and use that. Like, it's great.
What's the difference between this and pancake batter? This looks a little bit thicker than pancake batter.
It's not that different, honestly. It's usually using the same elements as a pancake batter. So they're pretty similar. I would say the waffle is probably just a little bit more heavy on the flour. But really you could almost use them interchangeably as long as you have a good pancake batter that's not too thin. We're going to go ahead and open this up and get our first waffle cooking. And you want to just have any kind of cooking spray available. If you don't like using like one of these sprays, you can just get like some avocado oil and put it on a paper towel and do it that way. But I really like the ease of the spray for this particular application. It will spread out, so you don't want to overfill it. So I have a pretty small little spoon here, so I'm just going to do 3. And we're going to close that and let that cook. Hey guys, welcome back. So I am going to pull off this waffle here. Woo! Okay. It's nice and crisp. So a couple things that I wanted to tell you about when you're making these waffles. Obviously, you have one waffle maker. You're going to be making these one at a time. So, while you're making your next waffle, in order to keep these guys warm, just put them in your oven at about 200 to 215 degrees, and that will keep them nice and toasty. Meanwhile, if you like warm syrup, which I do, you can put your syrup into a little saucepan on the stove and just turn this on to a very low heat. And I'm actually going to make it just a little bit fancier today because I've got that cinnamon in my batter. I'm going to infuse a cinnamon stick with this as well. So I'm just going to let that infuse in there while it gets nice and warm for us. And I would recommend using a salted butter for when you're putting your butter on your waffles, because it's going to enhance that flavor and just give you that yumminess. If you use unsalted butter for putting it on top of the waffles, it's going to be a little bit flat. So salted butter, and if you really wanted to, you could make yourself up a sweet butter, like a cinnamon honey butter, to go on top of that and carry that cinnamon even all the way throughout that. So I hope you enjoyed this recipe. Stay tuned for more good episodes, and if you have any questions or comments, just leave them down below. Thanks, guys.